so much for coming today. And I wanted to give a special thank you to TT Batu for letting us have the event here today, the pool party. All the money is going to Tapanon, to a village in Tapanon, to restore eyesight for that village. So there are 80 people had eye infections and now they're cleared up. They got medication for that. 223 people got glasses, including school teachers and children. If you saw the children out there, the elementary schools, so now they can see. And 10 people who were blind have had their vision restored. So that's where your money goes. So give yourself a round of applause for spreading heartgasms across Bali. And a special warm thank you for everybody who came from across the island and made the long trek to be here. I appreciate it. I appreciate all of the hearts in the room. I'm going to start off with a story that my ex-boyfriend told me never to tell anyone. He said, "You sound crazy. Don't ever tell anybody that story again." I told his friends at dinner one night, and it's why I moved to Bali. It was March, April 2014, so 5.5 years ago. I was sitting on my balcony in Ubud. I was drinking coffee. It was 4 p.m. and I was looking out at the palm trees across the way. And I was contemplating. It was like an hour-long contemplation meditation period. And I was looking at the trees and letting my mind go and just being present. And I had this experience in my heart that I'd never had before, where I was flooded with rapture, with joy, with bliss. My entire body it was wild. It was overwhelming. It was amazing. Then about like 4 or 5 seconds later, I was flooded with deep grief. And I started crying like from the depths of my soul, sobbing. It's weird. You see why he said, "Don't tell anyone that story, the palm trees made you cry." I'm like, but that's the truth. You know, I'm not here to lie to you. I'm here to tell you the truth. I'm here to talk about freedom. And so I had this experience with the palm trees, and so I did it the next day. I had my coffee, no expectations, looked out at the palm trees, and it happened again. Rapture, joy, and then followed by grief. Every day I'd go and every day it would happen, and it happened for 5 minutes to 20 minutes that I'd be crying. I couldn't explain what was going on at the time. I didn't understand it. I knew the trees had something for me. I felt like I was invited to come on an adventure, and I needed to find out what for. I'm trained my brain super logically, so this is not how before that moment, I had never been barefoot and hugged a tree before. My background actually is super analytical. I used to analyze large data in startups in San Francisco. I have a master's in statistics. My first website was Data Geek, like super, super analytical. And I had this experience with the palm trees in my heart that I couldn't explain. I've now, as you probably have guessed, have come to call that experience a heartgasm, where the energy in your heart just explodes with rapture. And so, to rewind back to like the beginning of my story, I decided I was just going to be really honest today. I was sexually abused when I was 5 and 6 years old by the janitor at my daycare center. Again, 11, 12, 13, by a family friend. And what I decided while that was happening, as most children do, this person must be right, I must be wrong, what I'm feeling is wrong, I am wrong. And so that's when I adopted this idea of shame, that something's wrong with me, that they wouldn't be doing that, so I must be wrong. And I wanted to shut off my inner world. Flash forward to when I was 16 years old and I had my first sip of alcohol. It was the first time I could relax. Before that, I had all this anxiety of when it might happen again, and then rage when it did. So I had this inner chaos inside. Now I know that as sympathetic nervous system, traumatic stress. So when I found alcohol, it was a beautiful journey that it took me on where I didn't have to feel any of that stuff. I don't know if any of you relate to the magical wonders of not feeling on alcohol. And with hindsight, I can see that the more that I drank, it's like the more that I needed to drink to cover up all that inner stuff inside that I never wanted to feel. And at a certain point, it stopped working. So I got on benzos, Klonopin. I don't know if any of you guys like benzos. Yeah, another one not to feel on, right? So it was great. And that helped me drink more too, because it curbed the hangovers. So then I was on benzos and Klonopin. I was diagnosed with just about every anxiety disorder, but I can see now with greater wisdom that it wasn't actually anxiety that I was experiencing. It was traumatic stress. I had just never talked about the trauma. I never faced it. I was covering it up. So it was bubbling inside me, ready to erupt. And it all came to a head one depressing September day in 2009. Almost 10 years ago, I was walking down my hallway, and I caught my reflection in the mirror. It was the scariest thing I've ever seen. It was like my spirit was about to come out of my body. Like the flame of my spirit was about to flicker out. And I knew I was dying. I knew I was about to die. It terrified me. As grace would have it, I got sober a week later. So I got sober on September 29th, 2009. And I started the sober journey. Shout out to all the sober people in the room. If there are any, you guys are badasses. You're my heroes. Doing this life thing sober with all the feels. People who would rather slowly kill ourselves with substances than feel. To do the life thing sober, I think you're amazing. Like really, you're my peeps. You're all my peeps, but especially those. I mean, it's a lot, you know. The first 2.5 years of my sobriety were like one long anxiety attack. I had the traumatic stress was back from that I never felt before. The coming off benzos, if anyone's had that journey, wow, that's a wild one. And then also not knowing how to know how to feel in general, like being like a 5-year-old in like life with all the feelings. So it was a lot. And so I was really desperate to feel comfortable in my skin. Right, so I started pursuing all these things. I got hardcore, I got obsessed with personal development. I started doing all this personal development work. I learned how to transform my relationship with my nervous system, and I got all the anxiety to calm down. I remember in April 2012, I was 2.5 years sober, I remember thinking, wow, my mind is like it's finally okay. Like I'm finally good. Like I feel like the anxiety attack is over. I haven't had a panic attack in a while. Like I'm good. I'm ready to like really rock it now. So a week after I had that thought, I wake up disabled. I wake up and my body doesn't work, my hand doesn't work. Since then I've had surgery on my wrist, carpal tunnel, and tennis elbow. So literally my hand didn't work. I couldn't, suddenly from one day amazing to the next day disabled. I couldn't go to work. I wasn't able to go to yoga, which I did every night. I wasn't able to cook. So suddenly it was like I was ejected from my life, and I didn't know how to handle tremendous amounts of physical pain sober. And so I needed to figure it out, right? Because I'm crying myself to sleep because I'm in such agony. At that point I had faith, so I knew I was being brought somewhere, like I'd already had faith in a higher power. But it was a lot, and I didn't know what to do. And so meditation was wonderful. Actually, meditation was the only thing that really worked. Learning how to be with my sensations without thinking about it. And finally, I decided to have surgery. I'm like, I'm out of options. So I have surgery, and after the surgery, I was in even more pain. And the doctor had told me, you have 2 months to recover, and now he's telling me 6 months, and then he's telling me even more. Maybe it's gonna be a year or 2 years. And I just felt depressed. I felt defeated. I felt like I'm waiting to live. I'm still waiting until I really get to do what I wanna do. And when he said you have 6 more months at least, if not 2 years until you're gonna, get to work, what I heard was, you can't live until 6 months to 2 years. When I realized that I was in victim mode, and that I was in pity, I snapped out of it and I thought, well, wait a minute, if I don't have to work and I don't have to work out and I don't have to cook for myself, why don't I go not do some of that stuff somewhere amazing? So I came to Bali, and next thing I know, I'm on my balcony and I'm having these heartgasms with the palm trees. And I could not explain the heartgasms. I could not explain what was happening in my heart. But I knew that I wasn't going to be able to work for a while, and I felt like at the deepest level that I needed to be here and find out what that journey was about, what was happening with my heart. So I decided to move to Bali. I come back and I go on this whole journey with trying to follow my heart, use the energy of my heart as a North Star, so that when I feel that like deep resonance in my heart, do that thing, whether it's hang out with a person or go to a place or whatever it was, but to use the energy of my heart as my decision making while I'm on this little, in my own head, it's some like mystical safari, right? I mean, a spiritual ego trip maybe, I don't know. But so I go around Ubud and I did all the things. I was having such an amazing time. And I thought I was letting go. And I thought I was finding out who I am without what I do involved. Who am I without ambition? Who am I without perfectionism? Why am I running? Why am I achieving? What is it that I'm running from? And what happened was I hit a bottom with spirituality, which I didn't even know there could be. And so I did psychic surgery. I had psychic surgery done on me. Yeah, this is probably, my ex would say, don't tell them that. Psychic surgery. I had cranial sacral therapy. I had a shaman soul retrieval journey, and I got the master's Reiki level attunement, like in the same 2 days. And and then I went through this really, really crazy 3 days where I thought I was going to die. I had such a high energy inside my body. Does anybody know that we have feet chakras? Does anybody know that? I didn't know that we had feet chakras until mine blew open. I'm like in the rice fields with all this energy pummeling through my body. And I wish I could tell you it was a different story, but this is just what actually happened. I felt like my heart was gonna explode out of my chest. And then I realized it. I'm not free. I'm doing it again. I think I'm on a spiritual journey, but I'm getting high. I'm getting high off spiritual energy. I haven't given up anything. I'm still running away from myself, and I found a really clever way to hide it, a really sneaky way to hide it. I'm in this spiritual bypass. Bypass, yeah. It's gonna kill me. I used alcohol, I used men, I used work, I've used spirituality. What the fuck am I running from? Why can't I just be? So then I stopped, and this is to anybody who's sober in here and is finding that they're compulsive in sobriety, and that was my journey. I was still compulsive until I was 5.5 years sober. I needed to find something else. I needed more than the 12 steps to get free. I needed to figure out what I was running from so I didn't have to keep running anymore. So I stopped running, and that's when I found out why I was running. If you want to find out why you're doing something, stop doing it. I was having this realization that I'm still compulsive, I'm not free. I was playing whack-a-mole with different experiences and substances and people and places to block my inner world. And so what I wanted to do, I didn't want to just say, never mind spirituality and have something else pop up like food. I wanted to unplug the machine, right? Anyone with me want to unplug that machine? So that's called freedom, when we don't have to do things we don't want to do. And what I found is that anxiety, this is how I see it now. Anxiety, it's a mask. For me, it's not real. Not that it's not real and your experience of anxiety isn't real, but that's not the problem. The problem isn't the anxiety. The anxiety is the alert that there is a problem or that something isn't right. And so the way I look at it is anxiety is like a warning light on the dashboard saying that something under the hood isn't right. And I spent my entire life covering up that warning light, saying, well, I'll cover it up with alcohol, I'll cover it up with men, I'll cover it up with spirituality, whatever, with work. But really, the journey was about not covering that warning light. It was looking in the hood to find out what's wrong at the engine, right? And so when I went down there, what I found was that the first layer of the journey was anxiety. Underneath my anxiety was a shit ton of rage at all the people who wronged me. Anybody relate to that? Have people that they're rageful at that wronged them? Underneath the anxiety was the rage. But I didn't stop there. Underneath the rage was actually deep sadness and grief, because I really wasn't mad at them. I was sad about what had happened. I was sad about what didn't get to happen. So underneath that was the sadness and the grief. And so, and it needed to be felt. So when I was in this journey with the heart in the trees, I ended up crying for 4 months in Ubud, and I just let it all come out. That was what was underneath my anxiety. The rage came out first. That was interesting. But then there was a sadness, but underneath the sadness was the shame. That's when I found what I believed back when I was 12 and 13 years old that I told you guys about. Something's wrong with me. So underneath the sadness was this belief that I was unlovable, something was wrong with me, that I'm flawed. That was the shame. And that's the shame that most of us are operating from, right? Doing things that we don't want to do with people and places that we don't want to do them because we're afraid because we don't know how to love ourselves. That's what I found on this journey. So the journey of the heart for me, it was using my heart as a North Star to go along and find out what I resonate with, right? Does anybody relate to being in a relationship ever where at the beginning you're like, this person is amazing, my heart is going crazy, I love them, we're meant to be, I know it's only 3 days, you guys don't understand, we're gonna move in together, like I've already named our kids, does anybody relate to what I'm saying right away? You know it's the one. You know it's the one. Okay, for them it's true. They've been together how many years? How many years have you been together? 21? Okay, give them a round of applause. 21 years. We send you many heartgasms. Only to find out that this lover, this boyfriend, this person, this girlfriend, this whoever actually is causing you tremendous pain, right? Then you blame them for the pain that you feel. But really what they're doing is they're illuminating the pain that's already inside of you. It's not about feeling good, it's about getting better at feeling. And the paradox, when we get better at feeling, we feel good. When I get better at feeling, I actually feel good. I'm not running anymore. I haven't been compulsive for the past 4.5 years of my sobriety. So if you're sober and finding that you're compulsive, I'm really glad you're here. I believe a way out, my way out, is the exercises in this book. And so what I found is that we don't have to go on this journey of numbing out and killing ourselves and crushing our spirit, that we just have to really, what I learned is, just allow what is. Allow what is inside us. Bring our mind into the sensations in our body, and when we do that, we get free. So whether it's anger, whether it's guilt, whether it's rage, whether it's shame, does anybody want a way out of guilt? To not have to feel like be guilt tripped ever again? There's a chapter called Canceling the Guilt Trip, which I think you'll love. This I uncovered on a silent meditation retreat in Thailand. I realized that guilt always controlled me, but so did fear, but so did anger, but so did all of everything I was ever feeling. It controlled me. I don't know, does anyone want to be free? Maybe you already are. I wanted to invite you guys into an exercise. Let's see. Exhaling through the nose. Keeping your eyes closed. Inhale. And exhale. Bring your attention down into the sensations in your body. Notice where you feel the most sensations right now. Perhaps it is your heart, your heartbeat. And exhale through the mouth. Slowly open your eyes. Was anybody able to notice their heart? Or some sort of wild sensations inside them? So I do that to demonstrate what it's like to practice some of the principles in the book. So whether it's anger, whether it's guilt, whether it's grief, whether it's shame, whatever it is, anxiety, that's all we do. We just notice what's here. And that's where our freedom is. There's no freedom in the thoughts. We get projected into the past and the future, right? But there is freedom in the moment. And so it's as simple as that. As many people as there are in the world, we might have an idea on how to feel and what feeling is about and what's the way to heal. And so ultimately the teacher is within, the guru is within. So anything I say, only if it hits you in that way that this is truth, is it true for you, right? Obviously, I don't want to give you permission to not believe me, but you don't need it, but it's there, right? I'm not the teacher. The teacher is what you feel inside. If your gut is telling you this feels right, be curious, go into it. But maybe you have a whole different way of talking about emotions. And we're both right, because it's our experience, right? Does anybody have a book in them that they haven't written yet? Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! All right. Let's give a big cheer for the up-and-coming authors. I can't imagine, so my book is dedicated, which will tell you a lot about my story. My book is dedicated to Eckhart Tolle and Bill Wilson. So you straight up get an idea of where I've been and what my journey's been about, right? If anyone knows either of those two authors, but they wrote the two books that transformed my life the most. I can't imagine where my life would be today. I'd be dead if they didn't write those books. I'd be dead. I'd be dead. And so whatever is inside of you, if you feel called to write, it's because we actually need it. We need your expression of the truth. It's not about you. This book isn't about me. I already did the journey. This isn't about me, right? When we write a book, it's not about, I already know it. I already know what's in here. I mean, I need to be reminded of it. Listen to your heart, not your head, right? But so your book is about us. All right, guys. Thank you so much for